Mr. Chancellor, colleagues, graduands, honored guests, it gives me great pleasure to present Stephen Lewis for an honorary degree at this convocation. Mr. Lewis has had a long and distinguished career of public service in Canada and internationally. After a period of youthful and exuberant travels, Mr. Lewis first emerged onto the public stage in 1963 as a member of the Ontario Legislature. He served as leader of the Ontario New Democratic Party from 1970 to 1978, ultimately becoming leader of the official opposition, the conscience of the government of the day. He has continued to fill this role as a commentator on Canadian political issues. From 1984 to 1988, Mr. Lewis served as Canadian Ambassador to the United Nations. In this role, he became a passionate participant in major initiatives related to African economic recovery, the welfare of children around the world, and climate change. Stephen Lewis continued to serve the world in various senior capacities with the UN following his ambassadorship. From 1995 to 1999, he was Deputy Executive Director of UNICEF. In 1997, he was appointed by the Organization of African Unity to a panel of eminent personalities to investigate the genocide in Rwanda. From 2001 until 2006, he was the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for HIV/AIDS in Africa. In this capacity, he woke up the world to the fact of the pandemic, to the inequities of treatment, and to the consequences of this scourge for Africa and for all of humankind. His 2005 award-winning book, Race Against Time, challenged the world to deal with the crisis in Africa. In his words, "We have a Kilimanjaro to climb before we meet the needs of Africa. While it is true that economic growth in Africa is ultimately tied to trade, it is fantasy to think that whole populations barely able to physically survive can drive the economic engine." Stephen Lewis is not slowing down. He is founder and co-director of AIDS-Free World and chair of the Stephen Lewis Foundation. He is also a member of the board of directors of the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative, among many other activities. Mr. Chancellor, in recognition of an outstanding contribution to the field of international service and humanitarian assistance, I request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa on Stephen Lewis.
By virtue of my authority, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Mr. Chancellor, it's lovely for me to be able to call the Honorable Herb Gray Mr. Chancellor. He's a longtime friend of the family. And Madam President, and the Chair of the Board, and the distinguished faculty assembled on the platform, and the extraordinary graduates of 2009, and the families here assembled with enthusiasm, excitement, tears, positively levitating with anticipation over what is to come. I'm tremendously honored to be part of this ceremony and to have received the honorary degree, and especially so, if I may say, because it is so personally moving, to be on a platform sharing this honor with Rick Hansen, a fellow for whom so many of us have a tremendous affection and regard, and who makes the word icon come to life, and who has contributed to this country and the world in ways that are largely unimaginable. And Rick, when you talked about being driven by heart and by soul, I thought, what a memorable phrase to enlist the attention of the graduates of 2009. I also have a particular reason for a celebratory spirit. Believe it or not, my father taught at this institution. In fact, when my father left political life, he came to Carleton and taught political science here for a number of years, and it was, I think, the loveliest moment to cap his life, to be part of an academic environment. He loved it, and therefore, in his name, I am overcome by a kind of cosmic nostalgia to think that he was here at that time. He sat in the Parliament of Canada when, as I was reflecting with the chair of your board, when politics was, if not divine, at least lovely and appropriate and useful, where serious debate took place across the floor of the House of Commons without any of the venom and the vituperation and the animosity and the mindlessness that so characterizes politics today. My dad was in the House of Commons leading the NDP when Bob Stanfield was there leading the Tories and Pierre Trudeau was there leading the Liberals. They actually liked each other. They actually respected each other. My father could stand in the House of Commons and say, "There, but for the grace of Pierre Elliott Trudeau goes God." And no one would take it amiss. Everybody would feel the affection that suffused the words. So it's nice to be here in my dad's name and my own, and be sharing the platform with Rick and saying some words to the graduates. I can't approximate the feeling that Rick conveyed. I want to just say a few words that are intensely personal, if I may, about a subject or subjects that preoccupy me at this moment. Yesterday, at the United Nations, there was a fascinating and unexpected consultation amongst all of the member governments. It was a consultation to decide on the creation of a new international agency for women. The first time in the history of more than 60 years of the world's premier multilateral organization where that looks as though it will come to fruition possibly before the end of this year, funded at a level of $1 billion a year with operational capacity on the ground and an Undersecretary General who is equal to all the other male hotshots in the UN system. And I think that's one of the most thrilling things that's happened in the last 10 or 20 years. I can't get over it. I live in a feminist family, and I love it. And I have to say that I've always thought that the feminist analysis is probably the most insightful and most productive analysis of male behavior that exists. And all our kids are feminists. Well, they know they have to be or they'll be disinherited. But it is a plausible dimension of the world. And I guess I've come to believe, if I can say this to the graduates, that the single most important issue, the single most important struggle on the planet is the struggle for gender equality. You cannot continue. You cannot continue to marginalize 52% of the world's population and ever expect to approximate gender equality or social justice or equity that is meaningful. And the range, as I've learned, having the privilege of being internationally involved for the last 20 or 25 years, the range of discrimination against women, particularly in underdeveloped parts of the world, parts of the world which are still struggling, where people live on less than $1 a day, the range of discrimination is absolutely overwhelming, whether it's international sexual trafficking, or whether it's female genital mutilation, or whether it's child brides or honor killings, or the absence of property rights, or the absence of inheritance rights, or the absence of economic autonomy, or inadequate political representation, or the paucity of laws against rape and sexual violence. The range of discrimination against women is so deeply rooted and so overwhelming as to compromise and approximate their lives day after day. And I was thinking as I came here that there are three very vivid examples right now which give credence to the struggle for gender equality. The first is what we call the Millennium Development Goal of maternal mortality. It's not often recognized that for the last 20 or 25 years, with a kind of demonic repetition, over 500,000 women have died in childbirth every year, and we've never been able to reduce the number. We know everything there is to know about emergency obstetric intervention. We know about midwives. We know about birth attendants. We know about moving women from a rural hinterland into an urban hospital when they're in trouble in labor. And we cannot reduce the carnage. Over 500,000 every year. And you ask yourself, why in God's name is this happening? And the second is the area that I've been deeply involved in for the last number of years, where the disproportionate vulnerability of women is so heartbreaking, it takes your breath away. I was in Mozambique not long ago, and I was visiting the second largest city in the country, Beira, the port on the ocean. And when I visit a new city, I regularly go to the local hospital, and I went up to the second floor, the adult women's ward of this ramshackle hospital. There were 56 beds in the ward. There were between 80 and 90 women on the ward. They were lying on the concrete floor of the corridor. They were lying on the concrete floor between the beds. They were lying under the bed. They were lying 2 and 3 to a bed. There was such an atmosphere of incipient death and palpable anguish. They were almost all there because of AIDS-related illnesses. And I stood at the door of that hospital ward. They were all so young. They were in their 20s and 30s. And I thought to myself, this is madness. How does this happen in the first decade of the 21st century, that women are so expendable, leaving such numbers of orphans behind? Do you know that in the age categories 15 to 24, where millions of people are living with the virus in sub-Saharan Africa, between 75 and 80% are young women and girls? It's a nightmare. And it all is rooted in gender inequality, because there is no sexual autonomy which the women can exercise. No capacity to say no to sex, no capacity to say wear a condom, no capacity to refuse unsafe sex. And the third area, which completely stumps me, mystifies me, overwhelms me, I have to admit, is the contagion of sexual violence, which seems to be engulfing so much of the world. It isn't rooted particularly on the African continent. We've seen it in country after country. It's domestic violence, intimate partner violence. It's violence when there is turbulence around election campaigns in some developing countries. And when there's conflict, the violence goes completely out of control. It becomes so depraved as to defy the capacity of the mind to absorb. And in a country like the Congo, where more than 250,000 women have been raped over the last 10 years, in the most brutal and savage fashion imaginable, and the entire international community knows it, and the Security Council debates it, and media reports on it, and for whatever complex of reasons, we've never been able to bring it to an end. And I'll tell you why we haven't been able to bring it to an end. Because of this damnable, persistent gender inequality. So I say to the graduating class, without attempting to knock the nail through the wall, there are so many wonderful organizations, NGOs like CARE and Save the Children and Doctors Without Borders and World Vision and AMREF and Oxfam that you can do some work with over the course of the years. There are organizations in government, there are United Nations agencies, there are ways of immersing a few months or a few years of your life in work to repair the human condition. And I beg you to consider it, and I beg you to recognize that the single most important value in this world is for young men to have respect for young women and to recognize that gender equality lies at the heart of the emancipation of humankind. I can't thank you enough for the honor you've bestowed upon me, you've bestowed upon Rick. I salute you. I wish you the best in the future. Thank you.